This free streaming service is incredible for old school movie fans who love to dig for forgotten gems from the past. So in that spirit, today I'm gonna recommend 10 pre-2000s movies. Wait, actually 9, and then one other movie that we just need to talk about that you can stream today on Tubi. But I know not everyone can stand the commercials, so at the end of the video, I'll let you know where else they're streaming at, as well as some international options. So with all that said, my name is Daniel with the Cobwebs channel, and let's dive in.
A world overlooked. For Commander Joseph A. Hendrickson, it is worse than hell. It is home.
Screamers from 1995. On a distant mining planet ravaged by a decade of war, a military commander travels through the devastated landscape to negotiate a peace treaty, but discovers that the primitive robots they built to kill enemy combatants have gained sentience. Yes, Screamers is a 90s intergalactic sci-fi horror action movie starring Peter Weller, and when I put it on, I fully expected just like a fun B movie. But what I got instead was, yes, a B movie, but one that took itself completely seriously, had intricate world building, a very tangible, real feeling to it, and genuinely engrossing politics. A lot of that is probably because it's based on a Philip K. Dick story and was co-written by Dan O'Bannon, and I just thought the very gray morality to this was very interesting. It takes place during a war on a planet, not between aliens, just between people from Earth that have traveled there. But it's not about fighting and winning. It's about nearing the end of that war and not even caring about the reasons for the war anymore. Both sides are tired, apathetic, and they just want the war to be over one way or another. And Peter Weller is great here as a man who's been totally broken down by this war and is just trying to end it. It's about his journey to the enemy base. Once he gets there, it's very interesting and not at all what you would expect. And these screamers that the title promises you are these robots that are basically run by an AI factory that are getting churned out more and more to kill people on the ground. That's the only way Peter Weller's side has been able to last this long, because he's basically the rebellion. And in a way that's pretty relevant today, the AI just keeps learning and growing in a way that gets pretty interesting. And maybe it went a little bit too far with the twists and turns, but overall, I thought it worked really well. This is a genuinely interesting science fiction film, one that's been very much lost to time, but I really hope people rediscover.
Something came out of the sky. A meteor or something.
The Curse.
The Curse from 1987. On the night of a terrible storm, an unidentified glowing object crashes on a farm and brings a horrible curse for the family and the members of their community. This is an Italian-American horror film based on H.P. Lovecraft's The Color Out of Space, and it's actually a very faithful adaptation. Now, I am a huge fan of the 2020 version of this story starring Nicolas Cage, and that one definitely goes for more of a cosmic horror feel and does more with the idea, but this one works very well as kind of an outbreak movie about this thing from space very much infecting the nature of this farm, turning the crop sour, killing the animals, deforming the people, and it just keeps growing and how horrific this can possibly be. I tend to be a big fan of farmland set horror. I love the feeling, the atmosphere of it, and this movie very much has that. About a young boy actually played by Will Wheaton and his mother and sister who reluctantly have to Brady Bunch with a local farmer there who's this very spiritual, judgmental kind of guy who's very difficult to live with, and you really feel the very interesting and complicated personal familial conflicts that are going on there. Interestingly enough, this is directed by actor David Keith in his directorial debut, but it's produced and partially uncredited directed by Louis Fulci. And if you're wondering if Louis Fulci is related to Lucio Fulci, they are the same person. So this is a little bit of a Fulci film too. It doesn't have a lot of that Fulci feel and feels very convincing as a mostly American movie, but Fulci does bring some of that goopy, gooey, cosmic goodness to it that he brought to the Gates of Hell trilogy. I liked this movie. I didn't love it like I liked the 2020 version, but it's got some gross stuff to it. It's got some good atmosphere. It's got some interesting stuff going on between the characters. The Curse is a good 80s horror gem, and it used to be very unavailable, and I'm so glad it's now streaming on Tubi.
Because you were born different, Men will fear you.
I'm Connor MacLeod. And I am immortal. There can be only one.
Highlander from 1986, which follows Connor MacLeod, an immortal warrior caught in a centuries-old battle as he faces the coming of the final showdown. For a long time, Highlander has been one of the biggest classics of cinema that I had never seen. And a lot of you guys knew that, and I've got a lot of comments about it. People saying, Daniel, why haven't you watched Highlander? If you don't watch Highlander, I'm gonna come to your house and chop off your head. Okay, that's not actually what they said, but basically that, you get it. And watching it, I just felt like this was probably based on a book, but it's not. And it is so remarkable that it is a totally original movie that is so creative, so packed with lore, and is still just under 2 hours. I think this could have easily been a 3-hour film, and maybe it would have been interesting to see it with more room to breathe. But as it is, it's nice that it gets through all this epic story in a pretty short runtime and is as cool and badass as it is. This is a really cool movie. I really enjoyed Highlander, even though it's definitely rough around the edges. It's starring Christopher Lambert as a Scottish warrior from the 1500s who discovers that he is part of an immortal race and he cannot die. And Christopher Lambert gives a weird performance here. I don't know what accent he seems to be going for, but he certainly doesn't sound Scottish at all, and his voice just sounds really strange. But somehow it works. He's got this really cool and brooding energy to him, and he's just got a great screen physicality. And then you've also got Sean Connery as his mentor, who does have an authentic Scottish accent, but is not Scottish in the movie. He's some kind of like Egyptian Spaniard guy, so that's weird. But Sean Connery is also awesome in this film. And the fights, while being definitely a bit clunky, are epic, and they completely work despite it all. Like, there is a sword fight. It's always sword fighting, by the way, which I love. I love that even as they travel throughout history, they're still always using swords. There's an epic battle between the main villain and Sean Connery, where the entire building around them is crumbling, and it is just epic. I don't know any other way to say it. It's so, so cool. And that villain, by the way, is played by Clancy Brown. And I love that there is a complete lack of subtlety to him. He is a big guy with an inhumanly deep voice who just growls and roars every line, screaming, "I am the greatest villain" at all times. And it works. Will there ever be another man like Clancy Brown? Probably not, but man, Clancy Brown rules. I really enjoyed Highlander. It's original, it's dense. I think I'll probably get a lot more out of it the second time, but as it is, this is super cool, and you can stream it right now for free on Tubi.
You want crazy? Well, I'll show you crazy.
The New Kids from 1985. Recently orphaned teen brother and sister come to a small town to live with their aunt and uncle and find out a local gang terrorizes the population. This is an 80s teen thriller that borders a little bit on horror movie and is directed by Sean S. Cunningham, who made the first Friday the 13th. And I just recently showed this movie to a bunch of friends, and while it didn't totally hit for everybody, so this film is not a surefire home run, even though it totally is for me. I love this film. A friend of mine pointed out very well that between the two characters, the brother and sister, a lot of the brother stuff feels like an action movie, and the sister stuff feels like a horror movie. So it ends up being this really cool genre-bending film that I absolutely love. And I love the cast of this thing. You've got very briefly at the beginning Tom Atkins as their dad, and things don't go too well for Tom Atkins, that's all I'm saying. But the sister is Lori Loughlin, and the leader of the gang that all targets these two siblings because the sister won't go out with any of them is led by James Spader. And this is peak slimy, evil James Spader that is so, so good. This super arrogant sleazebag kid with bleach blonde hair. God, I just love him here. And the film just has such a great sense of place, taking place in the hot swamps of Florida and actually being filmed there. And the kid's uncle who takes them in actually runs a Christmas-themed theme park. So you've also got that weird atmosphere to it as well. I love how often this film feels like it's switching genres. I love the characters. I love the super 80s soundtrack. But more than anything, I think, I love how insane this movie gets as it escalates further and further and higher, way beyond what you would expect, and just gets bonkers crazy by the end. The New Kids, I think, personally at least, is awesome.
My name is John Harrington. I'm 30 years old. I am a paranoiac. The fact is, I am completely mad. The realization of which annoyed me at first, but is now amusing to me.
Hatchet for the Honeymoon from 1970. A deranged fashion designer murders brides-to-be, believing each killing brings him closer to unlocking a dark secret buried in his past. This is a Mario Bava Italian horror film that is a bit of a giallo while being a total flip on it. And Mario Bava movies, I really love them, but they can be very slow at times. And I think Hatchet for the Honeymoon isn't really, and it's one of his most obviously and accessibly just purely entertaining films, despite the fact that it's still one of his more obscure. Lead actor Stephen Forsythe is very good as a handsome and charming psychopath, and that's why this is a giallo that's completely flipped, because the killer is the main character and he knows he's a killer from the start. And it's an interesting character study because he doesn't really seem to be evil. He's just totally out of his mind, like pathetically insane. And there's actually a lot of correlations I see in this film between this and American Psycho. And he's a very Patrick Bateman-like character. He's even got narration going through the film. And in that narration at the beginning of the film, he says something like, "I find it amusing that I am totally mad." It reminds me of Patrick Bateman saying, "I am simply not there." Mario Bava has a reputation for being a very colorful and stylish filmmaker, and he very much is here. This is a great looking movie with great murder sequences, always killing brides-to-be with a hatchet, hence the very apt title. And there's also very cool detail that he is haunted throughout most of the film by one of the women, I won't say which, that he kills. And you've got very cool ghostly stuff, and it also makes him, I don't want to say sympathetic, but like you totally feel that this guy is just, he's not there. And like, he probably needs help, but also he's doing horrible things. And it just puts you, the audience, in an interesting perspective. I actually thought this was like one of the most purely enjoyable Mario Bava films. I really recommend it.
I'd hate to take a bite of you. You're a cookie full of arsenic.
Sweet smell of success.
Sweet Smell of Success from 1957. A highly successful New York City gossip columnist holds considerable sway over public opinion, but can't control his younger sister, who is trying to marry a jazz guitarist. Now, he disapproves of this relationship and recruits a publicist to find a way to split the couple, no matter how ruthless the method. I love classic noir films, and I really love a good, slimy, skeevy noir, and that is very much what this is. I actually think a lot of people don't give credit to the 1950s for how many dark films there really were during that decade. A lot of people think of 1950s culture from the TV shows, from like Leave It to Beaver and stuff. But if you look, don't look at TV. If you look at the movies over here, there's so much cool dark stuff, and this might actually be the darkest film I've seen from this entire decade. Almost every character is some shade of evil. Burt Lancaster is great as a highly corrupt media mogul, and Tony Curtis is a publicist, so his whole job is getting his clients into this guy's column. And because he's totally reliant on Burt Lancaster, Lancaster uses him as his lapdog. Like literally, he refers to him as a dog several times here to do his dirty work. And man, the things that he gets him to do, it's so bleak. And Tony Curtis has never been better than as this pathetic, weaselly scumbag character. This is very much like 1950s Uncut Gems with Tony Curtis in the Adam Sandler role. I did a video recently on diabolical horror films, and I feel like this is a diabolical noir. It is bleak, it is sleazy, it's beautifully written with so many vicious lines of dialogue that are so smart, cutting, and memorable. I absolutely love this film. It's one of the best noir films ever made and one of the best films of its decade.
It all started with the book. One minute I was reading about him, and the next minute he was standing right next to me.
I, Madman, Read any good books lately?
I'm Madman from 1989. A bookshop clerk starts seeing a disfigured serial killer straight out of her favorite 1950s pulp novels now come to life and slaughtering people around her. This is such a perfect movie if you're just looking for an old school movie experience, because this is an 80s horror film, but one that is very retro in trying to capture the feeling of the 1950s in a way that a lot of movies today are like very nostalgic about like 80s pop culture and VHS tapes and such. This is very nostalgic about 1950s pulp novels. And our main character, played by Jenny Wright from Near Dark, who is fantastic here, is obsessed with these novels, tracking down these scary thriller horror books. And when one starts coming to life, it's really creepy. This killer is so brilliantly brought to life by the filmmakers to be as creepy as possible. In a decade, the 1980s, when there were a whole lot of creepy serial killers on the screen, Madman stands out with a character who has sliced most of his facial features off and is now killing people and taking their nose, their ears, sewing them onto himself. So he just gets more horrific looking as the movie goes. So I love that this really gives you the goods that you're looking for from 80s horror, but really captures a timeless aesthetic with the fashions and the sets, the old bookstore atmosphere. It's a film that's so unique, creative, imaginative, and it's got such a pulpy retro style to it. And it's a movie that was really unavailable to watch for a long time. It was way out of print on Blu-ray, wasn't on streaming, but now it's been put back in print by Kino Lorber on physical media, and now it's on streaming, including for free on Tubi. That is awesome.
Nothing you have ever done, seen, or imagined can prepare you for the experience of hardcore.
Turn it off!
George C. Scott. Hardcore.
Hardcore from 1979. A conservative Midwest businessman ventures into the sordid underworld of the adult film industry in search of his teenage daughter, who's now making hardcore films in the pits of LA. Directed by Paul Schrader, starring George C. Scott, I saw this film for the first time last year, and it was my favorite first-time watch of the whole year. I think Hardcore is an unbelievable masterpiece. It is so awesome. Like, for one thing, I just love the topic that it is about a father, almost literally it feels like, diving straight into hell to save his kid. I'm just a fan of that kind of storytelling. And man, this movie makes the whole adult film industry look so dark, seedy, vile, and disturbing. You might think this movie's gonna be sexy, it's gonna have some sex appeal to it, but it really doesn't. Like, everything feels very scary. And I just love seeing George C. Scott, who's one of my favorite actors, and just brilliantly brings this, you know, just normal, conservative Midwest guy to life and pushes him so far outside of his comfort zone. The movie just kept surprising me on just how far he was willing to go, how deep he was willing to go to get his kid back. And it's so fun to watch. Like, it's not just a disturbing movie. It's not just a bummer, even though it is at times, but it really is fun to watch this character go undercover, assume different identities, go so wildly out of his comfort zone. This is such an awesome movie, brilliant lead performance, lots of other great supporting performances around him, and has such a seedy, dirty, but atmospheric feel to it. And I adore this film.
It's about more than friendship. It's about adventure. Mac and Me.
Mac and Me from 1988. A mysterious alien creature, aka Mac, escaping from NASA agents, is befriended by a young wheelchair-bound boy, and together they try to reunite Mac with his family. Okay, so if you hadn't figured it out already, this list is not ranked. So Mac and Me is not the second best on this list. This is the one movie here I am not saying I recommend, but I watched it and I have to talk about it. So I watched it because the physical media company that I love, Vinegar Syndrome, just announced they're putting out a really fancy special edition 4K of Mac and Me. And I had only heard about this film as like one of the all-time bad movies, like The Room or Troll 2 or something like that. I just had to see it for myself. What the hell is Mac and Me? So yeah, this is labeled as one of the worst movies ever made. And first of all, that's ridiculous. It's not. I get why it was panned when it came out. It is such a a blatant ripoff of E.T., it's like embarrassing. In fact, while I was watching it, my wife came into the room at one point, barely saw any of it. Like, she just walked in and immediately said, "Are you watching E.T.?" I was like, man, all you have to see is like 2 seconds of this thing and you know exactly what they're going for. It also has a level of product placement that goes beyond shameless, both for Coca-Cola and for McDonald's, especially for McDonald's. Like, wow. But now in 2025, I don't feel like any of those things matter anymore. There's a ripoff of everything. There's a 10 zillionth Jurassic Park movie in theaters right now. And for the McDonald's thing, like, it's now fun to watch 80s McDonald's, and they make McDonald's into such a fun community gathering space where people are literally like dancing. They're loving being there so much. And I don't know, it made me nostalgic for a time when there like were places that were like community gathering places. You didn't just walk into the fast food restaurant and just see people sitting on their phones. But the movie is so insane and so weird. Normally I'm not a so bad it's good person, but this one got me. Whether it's the vacuum cleaner that literally sends a girl rolling around the ceiling and spinning around like crazy, the wheelchair kid flying off a cliff, the ending, oh my gosh. I knew a few things about this movie going in, but I did not know the ending. I would not dream of spoiling it for you, but it is one of the most bonkers, insane things I've seen in so long. I couldn't believe my eyes. Wow. Mac and Me. Look, I'm not here to recommend Mac and Me. I think you already know if you want to watch this or not, but I watched it and I can't say I had a bad time.
Julie's cool. Randy's hot. She's from the valley. He's not. Valley Girl.
Valley Girl from 1983. Julie, a girl from the valley, meets Randy, a punk from the city. It's a Romeo and Juliet story, or a Randy and Julie story, where people from two different worlds find love and somehow try to stay together in spite of her trendy, shallow friends. Okay, I'm gonna make a grand declaration right now, and I need you to cover John Hughes' ears. Don't let him hear this. Valley Girl is my favorite 80s teen movie. Man, I love this film. I love how 80s it feels. This is one of the top time capsules for that decade ever. Like, it just feels so 80s in its bones. From the super 80s soundtrack with the pop hits for Julie and the punk rock for Randy, the fashions, the slang, it's all so perfect. And I love the two leads so much. You've got Deborah Foreman, who's just one of my favorite actresses of the 80s. She is so cute and fun, and she's just a joy to watch here. And Nicolas Cage. And Nicolas Cage, I'm a huge fan of him, but it's really great to watch him so young before he was going for like crazy manic Nicolas Cage, just playing a normal guy. And there's a lot of interesting stories about the behind the scenes where like a lot of the producers didn't want to cast Nicolas Cage because they said he wasn't conventionally attractive enough. And Martha Coolidge and like director Martha Coolidge and like all the women involved were like, no, he is attractive. Let's put him in here. And I do just love the story of these two people getting torn apart by their friends, not the families in the case of traditional Romeo and Juliet, and the super hateable ex-boyfriend of hers that's trying to tear them apart. And it all, of course, climaxes at prom, a great 80s prom with a live band, and it has one of my favorite endings I've ever seen in a movie. Valley Girl is just a heart explosion of joy for me. It's guaranteed to give me some happiness, some comfort, no matter what kind of day I'm having. Love it so much. Check it out on Tubi if you haven't seen it. Before I go into some more streaming options, I just want to give a massive shout out to my patrons who truly make this channel possible. If anyone else wants to support me and what I do here, there's always a link to my Patreon in the description below. And I want to give a special shout out to Mark Bessinger, Michael Gray, and Bobby Bolton. You guys absolutely rule. If you don't like Tubi for the commercials, here's some more streaming options for a lot of these movies on the screen, as well as some international options. And if you want to check them out on physical media, I do have affiliate links in the description below, and using them helps support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to give a like and a subscribe if you haven't yet. And definitely don't forget to enjoy yourself today, have some fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye.